In the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you 16 unique hero section layouts that you can steal to add some variation to your design work. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to show you how you can get this Figma file completely free. So let's get into it. So this first hero section might appear to be just a standard 2-column layout at first glance, but there are a few things that are done to add a little bit of depth and to make it feel different than what you normally see. So on the left side, we have a pretty standard layout, our header, our subheader, and then we've got 2 additional data points down below that are shifted to a horizontal layout, and they've done a really good job with the hierarchy and size just to draw your attention to those things. What I really love is on the right column, they've got a dark background, and what they've done is they have incorporated the nav links inside of that column. So these columns don't just stop at the nav, but they incorporate that entire nav bar. They also have an image here that looks like it's coming out of that column, and it overlays just a little bit on the left side of that column to make it feel like the image is coming out at you, which again just adds a little bit of depth. This is a simple layout that could be used, but it'll make your work look really professional. I love this second layout mainly because they utilize a bento grid over on the right side, but they still have a standard layout to the left, right? They've got their header, subheader, calls to action, and then they have a few logos for social proof. They're also up on the top right side above the bento grid showing a couple faces, which is also a great way to illustrate and gain trust. The bento grid is done really nicely with different colors, and overall I think this is a little bit busy, but it's really fun and engaging and easy to look at. And the other thing that I love about this design is they've got the slight texture behind everything, which again just adds a little bit more depth and makes it feel unique. This next hero section layout is great when you have short, powerful headings. I'm not sure if that's the case here with it saying off kit, which I believe is the name of the product. But if you can find a way to have your heading be big, short, and strong, this is going to be a great option to illustrate that. Then you've got your subtext and then the 3 images down below. And I'm actually a big fan of utilizing images in this way where the majority of them is showing, but the bottom half is slightly cut off. This encourages people to continue to scroll to see the rest of those images, and hopefully you can just continue to encourage them to keep scrolling until they get to the bottom of the page. I'm also a big fan of centerline text in the header because as you get down lower in the page, you're going to want to left align the larger blocks of text. But when you have a short heading and a short subheading, it's really easy to center align that, and it's still really easy for people to read and consume that content. For the most part, this next example is fairly basic. It's got the content to the left, a little collage of images to the right. But the thing I love about this is right below that, they center align all of this social proof. They've got a really powerful sentence right there, and then they've got all of these scrolling logos. And so there is a lot going on in this hero section, but I think they do a good job of adding variation to left aligned, right aligned, center aligned. People love that type of variation, and it makes it feel new and fresh and more enjoyable to consume. In this next example, we're getting creative with alignment. You'll see that the main header is left aligned all the way to the left, but then we have the rest of the content pushed down to the right corner, still left aligned, and we have this image coming in from the left that almost seems to be pushing all of that sub-content over. Now, this is definitely a unique way to lay things out, and you want to be careful when you're getting creative with your alignment. You don't want everything to feel like it has no purpose in where it is placed and aligned, but I think this one does a really awesome job. I also love the lines that are kind of curving, going back and forth through the content. It seems like it helps pull me down through the content. And the other thing that they do really well here is throwing a couple faces right in between the header and the subheader. Again, it adds trust and makes it feel personal. Overall, I'm actually a really big fan of this layout. Our next example is definitely unique. We've got our main header and subtext up in the top left and then a little more content down in the bottom right. And then we've got almost this diagonal layout of images. We've got a small image. We've got a large centered image that takes up the entire height. And then we've got a small image up in the top right. Now this might feel a bit random, but what they've done well is utilize these small dotted lines to kind of pull everything together. And I think that if you do this properly, you can actually tell a really good story through this series of images and icons, and then having the content kind of on the outskirts of all of that. So the one thing that I would make sure, if you're going to utilize this much real estate for images in your hero section, they better be really good, relevant images that really illustrate what it is that you do. You're not going to want to use a layout like this with just plain stock footage because it is some really prime real estate that can be wasted if people don't understand the images. In this next example, we again are getting creative with our alignment. And I always want to add caution to this because if it's not done purposefully, it's going to look messy and it's going to look like it was done not on purpose. And so in this instance, we have this center aligned header. It's got a little bit of variation in the alignment and also in the color. And I'm not really sure why the word while is highlighted. You would probably want to highlight more of a benefit or powerful word other than just while. But then over here on the right side, they've got this small box with the left aligned subtext, but it seems like everything else is kind of center aligned, pulling you down the page. And so again, I'm not sure whether or not this is the best example of how to use this layout, but I think it's a good example of showing you how you can use variation in alignment and sizing and hierarchy to make your site look different than all of the others out there. The last note that I would add to this is these kind of grid lines that you see on the navigation and the sides. This is a trend that I'm seeing more and more, and I actually think it kind of adds this cool, crisp, organized feel. I would say these lines are maybe a little bit too dark and can draw too much attention away from the content, but this is something that I think we're going to see a lot more in web design. This next example incorporates a lot of standard layouts. So on the left side, we have our header, subheader, and then our calls to action, which are horizontally laid out. Over on the right side, though, we have this image that is strategically placed to kind of pull you down the page. The bulk of the image is visible in the hero section, but there's a small section of this that is kind of pulling you down and makes you want to see what's next. And I think this could be a really cool feature to add to your website, especially if this first image actually works into a second image and they're almost uniform as one thing. Or you could do something as simple as having a line that takes you from the first image down to the second. Anything to encourage the scroll is going to be helpful. And then down here on the left, we've got some social proof, and I love that they've kind of pulled this away from the main header section. It just gives it a little bit of room to breathe. It doesn't pull too much attention away from the main idea, but they've actually done a cool job of what looks like a slider that is sliding and moving through these logos. And it looks like they come in and fade in from the right behind the image, and then they fade out on the left. Any sort of movement like this that you can add, it just makes it feel fresh and exciting. Our next example is a simple 2-column layout. Again, these columns don't stop at the nav bar. They actually incorporate both the logo and all of the nav links. But what I love about this is the right column looks as if though it could have like sliding images inside of that column that appear to go behind the left column. This is a great way if you have multiple images that will illustrate your product or service and you want to have them slowly sliding through. You can show a lot within the hero section. Our next example is a fantastic example of hierarchy. They're using different sizes, font weights, colors, and layouts to just add variation and show you exactly where your eyes should go. So we've got our main header that has one word circled, one word underlined with their brand color. We've got our subtext, but then rather than going right to the call to action, we've got this 3-column layout with icons, and then we've got the orange headers, which are a lot smaller, and then the subtext. And so using a layout like this can convey a lot more information in the hero section before you pitch them with a call to action button, or in this case, it's an email submission, but I'm actually a big fan of what they've done with this hero section. This next layout example matches this brand perfectly. This is a Montessori kindergarten, and so everything they've done with this layout just makes it feel fun and bubbly and playful. So you can see that they've done this with the hero section, which is the yellow background. They've done this with the images. They've done this with the header with all these small doodles around it. And then also the call to action button. Rather than just having a boring square button, they've got this bubble with their strongest brand color. Now, I mentioned this before, but I'm a big fan of center-aligned hero sections, especially when there is a lot less text, because when you get too wordy, it's kind of difficult for people to read when it's center-aligned. But when you just have a handful of words, in this case, it's just "Welcome to Montessori Kindergarten," center align just really kind of pulls your attention to the middle, and I feel like it kind of encourages more of the scroll, especially when you have like a little doodle arrow that's pointing down to show you more. The one thing I will mention on this layout is a hamburger menu on a desktop layout is typically not a good idea. The only instance in which I would say this is a good idea is if you are almost trying to discourage them from clicking to other pages. If you really want them to stay on like a sales page or a landing page, hiding your nav links behind a hamburger menu might be a good idea, but in most cases, they're going to be better off laying out their actual nav links right there where they can be seen and they're just one click away. This next layout example has a lot of like sporadic image placement, but I think it's pulled together nicely with the center aligned content. Now, in this instance, it looks as if though they have no other nav links. They've just got the logo, header, subheader, call to action, and then a little icon and an image at the bottom that are kind of encouraging you to keep scrolling and see what else there is below. Now, I like that they've utilized this blue line because this also feels like it kind of pulls things together, and it's drawing your eyes. It's taking you through a journey of reading the header, following that line, seeing the image, the line kind of disappears down below. It makes you want to scroll and follow that line to see what's next. This next example is very similar to others that I've shared in my other videos. And in fact, there's a great example of this in this video that I'll link to right up here in the corner. But in this instance, you've got a really large, powerful heading, and you are incorporating icons and images, and in this case, a video, inside of your header. So in this example, you're not seeing any subtext, you're not seeing any call to action. So I would assume that the call to action they want you to take is watching the video here. And so this is really creative. It's definitely more on the artsy side. So you just need to make sure that you are careful with the way you implement this, because if it gets too difficult for them to read the header, it's going to lose people. The next example is a fairly basic horizontal layout. You've got your text to the left, call to action to the right, and then this would look very normal if all of these images were just in a single row, but they've made it feel a little bit more interesting by raising up just one of those images. In this example, it seems like all of those images are equally as important. There's nothing unique about the one that is raised up. So I think using that hierarchy, you might want to use an image that is more important than the others below. But at the end of the day, just making small tweaks like this can make a very basic website feel interesting. The reason I chose this next example is they are really utilizing the image space on the right to really convey a process or the way something works rather than just a basic image. And so in this case, they've got these logos that are pulling you through their brand and then flowing out of your brand and showing you what the result will be. And so utilizing that real estate on the right side to really tell a story with images rather than just have a picture of, somebody holding a phone or a desktop screen of your dashboard, right? This really can tell more of a story that encourages people to learn more or helps people understand better what it is that you do. Now on the left side, it's more of a basic layout. You've got your header, subheader, and call to action. And then like the other example that we had, they've pulled that social proof of all these logos down away from the main header just to allow everything room to breathe. This final example is my absolute favorite from this entire video. I love, first off, what they've done with the header. They're showing a ton of information in a very short header, and they're doing this by having half of the header shuffling or changing. So in this case, you're telling people that they can easily create a passport photo, a visa photo, a license photo. And so by having that movement, you have a better chance of catching somebody's attention, and they're going to say, wow, like that's what I'm looking for on this website. Aside from that, they have the left aligned subtext, the call to action, but that all kind of takes up one horizontal space. And then below that, we have these large data points, which are just additional benefits, right? You've got the price, you've got how long it takes, you've got how many different people use your services, and then you've also got your 4.75 rating. And then down below that, you've got more horizontal laid out images. And I love that they've kind of offset those a little bit just to make it feel a little bit creative and a little bit more flowy. But overall, this is just a really cool example of how you can utilize the real estate in a hero section to just engage people right off the bat. So I'm curious to know which of these section layouts you like the most. I personally will be commenting number 16 down below, but I'd love to hear from you as well. Now, if you want to download the free Figma file with all of these layouts so you can basically copy and paste them into your designs, I'm going to add a link down below in the description. I'll also link to that right here on the screen So you can click that, just tell me which email you want me to send access to, and you can have that right away. So thanks so much for watching this video, and we'll catch you in the next one.